Some of you are older and gamers might remember a time when you could unabashedly look forward to the release of certain titles. You might have heard some news, you saw something and you thought, I'm going to get this. Maybe you might have pre-ordered, maybe not, but you knew almost certainly you were going to get that title. Frankly, you had no reservations. It was a feeling of unadulterated joy and anticipation, pleasant anticipation. You really, really wanted that. You knew you were going to enjoy it. And why? Because whatever developer made that IP in the past, they had created a precedent. You thought, well, it's just going to continue. It's a matter of empiricism, a matter of experience. For example, Mass Effect 1, and to varying degrees Mass Effect 2. You thought Mass Effect 3 was going to be really, really good. Lo and behold, it turned out to be a bit shakier than that. Just one example amongst many. But I fear we have entered a new age, a new order of gaming, a new order of anticipation, or to put it more precisely, lack thereof. And the best case in point I can bring up here is the very recent, as in yesterday, announcement of Crusader Kings 3. Some of you probably play grand strategy games. Most of you don't. They're not a super popular genre. I play them sometimes, but I do have some history and background with Crusader Kings 2. Now, normally, with a game, and I say normally in a sane, normal world, that you're looking forward to, you might think, oh, I'm looking forward to that. Crusader Kings 3. It's going to build upon Crusader Kings 2. Yada, 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 right? That's not how it works anymore. And I'll expand on this in a bit because it applies to basically every publisher and every developer out there, with a few exceptions, maybe. So you have that initial anticipation, and then it is shot down instantly by a Scud missile. Remember those if you're old enough? Because you know the history of Paradox. Now, a little while back, Paradox released a game called Rome Imperator, which turned out to be a flaming piece of dung. Effectively a game released in alpha state, maybe even pre-alpha, lacking the bare minimal of what you would expect in a modern, up-to-date grand strategy game that a company, for the record, is famous for. Meaning Paradox is famous for developing grand strategy games, and they have a wealth of experience and years of experience to draw upon, and instead they release a game in alpha state with bare bones, almost no features. On top of that, Paradox over time has become known as a company that is just looking to rip you off. So to the extent that games are not completely bare bones or alpha or beta, and many of them are, they lard you up with DLC over the years that can amount to hundreds of dollars or euros over time. That is a proven strategy, a strategy they employ again and again. And so you have this background of disappointment, of games lacking features, of games being released in an alpha state or a beta state, and all of your anticipation has washed away from your face. The joy you might have felt, the thoughts you had, oh wow, this game, I can't wait for it to come out. You realize that the best case scenario, for example, with Crusader Kings 3, is that in all likelihood you're going to have to wait 5 or so years for it to become polished in a proper game, in addition to all the DLC you're going to have to spend tons of money on, even when it's on sale. And as a consequence, there's nothing to look forward to in that regard. Oh, Crusader Kings 3? We know what that's going to be like. Because these companies, Paradox in this case, have created a new track record. You can create a positive track record or a negative one. You can create an empirical experience that suggests that what you're going to release as the next game is going to be a good one, something you can legitimately look forward to. Or you can not do that. And the sad state of affairs we find ourselves in, gentlemen, is such that the majority, indeed the vast majority of publishers and developers fall into the camp of, let's not look forward to this. This is scary. We know it's probably not going to be good. Crusader Kings 3, I'm willing to hedge my bets here, will probably not be good. It will probably be a bare bones game. It will be incomplete. There will be many, many problems. And frankly speaking, I'm probably going to have to wait years and years before it's actually playable. Now, I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised here. After all, maybe they've learned their lesson. Maybe Imperator Rome was just a quick cash grab. Who knows? And maybe their real baby, their real project was Crusader Kings 3. This is just one instance. To get back to some other examples, you had companies like BioWare, which is a great example, that produced some really, really good RPGs, really good games. And then they started slowing down. And then they started to produce not so great games, games that were okay. This is okay, but that's not okay. A lot of people had issues with the ending of Mass Effect 3. For me, it wasn't just the ending, but the ending probably was the worst. The discontinuity there, etc., etc. But you kept on giving them a chance until the empirical track record became such that it was intolerable. For me, this was Mass Effect Andromeda. Just forget it. GG. The same is true of Bethesda these days, is it not? Bethesda that had a good track record for open world games, not amazing RPGs per se, but good open world games that you could explore and do things in, has really set the bar low with things like Fallout 76. And therefore, I think it's very difficult for anyone who's sane and paying attention to really get excited about any title that they might release. So Starfield, which is their next pet project and the thing they're working on right now, presumably some sort of outer space RPG. I don't know what to expect, but I don't expect anything positive. And even the next Elder Scrolls. And mind you, gentlemen, I used to joke with friends of mine, personal friends of mine, that the only reason I continue to exist is for the sake of Elder Scrolls 6. How could I even make a joke like that these days? If Bethesda were to next week say, look guys, Elder Scrolls 6, look at all this stuff, I would be deeply, deeply, deeply skeptical, and I wouldn't look forward to it at all, because they've set this precedent. They have created this track record, and therefore the magic is gone. I can't say, oh wow. Now, yes, it's entirely possible that modders will mod the hell out of the game to the point where it's not just playable, but enjoyable, but that's a long-standing process, in a similar vein to what happens with Paradox games. Paradox takes years to fill up their games with the appropriate features that should have been in the original game. And then on top of that, you have to wait for all the DLC and blah, blah, blah. Same thing, generally speaking, with Elder Scrolls games. Matter of fact, if you go to Nexus Mods, you can see between Elder Scrolls Skyrim Special Edition, the original, there are about 2 billion downloads from mods. That's very telling. Nobody would be playing that game if it were just Skyrim. We all know that. And this is someone who has a lot of hours in Skyrim and is formally retired from the game. And the list could go on and on. We could talk about Bethesda, we could talk about BioWare, we'd talk about a lot. To provide some contrast, and this is not airtight, you have a company like CD Projekt Red, and I'm not suggesting they're perfect, but the one track record they have provided for us has been The Witcher, which has been gradual and continuous improvement. No game they've made is perfect. Witcher 3 has its problems, but it's overall a very good game. And so you can base your anticipation towards Cyberpunk 2077 on that and say, well, probably it'll be pretty good. Likewise with the release of Baldur's Gate 3, if you're into those types of games. We know that Larian Studios has produced really good games in Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, and they will probably take their expertise and create a very good game in Baldur's Gate 3. And then there are these iffy cases, such as Bloodlines 2, the vampire game. Maybe it'll be good, but I saw the demo and I was pretty disappointed. And knowing who's working on it and the edginess and the wokeness, I'm a bit skeptical. And so we've reached a stage in the gaming world, especially for veterans, and by that I mean just old folk like myself who play games, where you either have zero anticipation or the best case scenario is you know what you're going to get. A great example of knowing what you can get, I think, these days will be any title Ubisoft publishes. Take Assassin's Creed. With Assassin's Creed, they broke away from the original form of the genre, which a lot of people were upset about. I was not one of them because I wasn't as invested in it, although I had played it a bit. And I actually rather enjoy the new historical exploratory dimensions of these things, but neither here nor there. They broke away from that, and they created an open-world action RPG. I'm not claiming whether that's a good or bad thing. You might not like that. Some people do like that. I happen to enjoy that to some degree. But one thing you can count on is that any game called Assassin's Creed will be larded up with tons of microtransactions, and it will make it such that it will be very difficult to resist. For example, if you want that set of armor or those weapons, there'll be some in-game way of grinding for it based on probability, essentially a lottery, and the likelihood that you're going to get it is slim to none. So you either give up or the pressure is on for you to spend real money. So we know that any Assassin's Creed game is going to be larded up and loaded up with microtransactions. And that's just the way it is. You know what you're going to get. The next Assassin's Creed will be based on a medieval Viking setting, which will probably be quite interesting for those of you interested in that genre, that time period. I certainly am. But we also know what we're going to get. The type of game we're going to get, the combat, the microtransactions, etc., etc. Does one look forward to something like that? Maybe, maybe not. But it's not that unabashed sense of joy of, I can't wait for this to come out. In fact, the gaming world, in terms of reliability of developer releases, has become so depressing and so unreliable that there's nothing I truly look forward to. Part of that is just being old, and when you're old, you tend not to look forward to things as you do when you're young because you already have one foot in the grave. But even a game such as Cyberpunk 2077, which I kind of am looking forward to, I'm not psyched about, and this is because you never know what might happen. All the failures over the years from AAA publishers have resulted in deep, deep skepticism, no matter the developer. And the best case scenario you find ourselves in is some scenario where you allow yourself to be surprised by hidden gems, but you're not going to be looking forward to it whatsoever. Now, I'm not going to claim this is a universal experience. It might simply be predicated on my age, but by and large, I think this has been the trend for quite some time, and it's going to get worse and worse. So let me know what you think in the comments section, all you gamers, and especially all you older gamers. Inevitably, people are going to bring up Japanese games. I'm sorry, just not into it. I respect your interest in it, but never got into it myself. I'm sure Japanese games are still good, but obviously I'm talking about Western games in the general genre there. Anyway, as always, may the gods watch over you, and if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.